And Charles, we can come to you now as Managing Director for Rwanda Airports Company with Kigali Airport here. Can you tell us your one critical change or challenge that you'd like to see?
Thank you, Croy. Can you hear me? Thank you. So I think picking one challenge will be difficult for me, but I have just a simultaneous changes that we need. Maybe I can take three in one. Let me make it three in one. Number one, what we need is the modernization of our infrastructure and equipment. I'm talking this in part of our African continent. As you know, since 50s, airports were serving for only the colonial activities and the benefits. Then during the African independence, the leadership in Africa was not looking airports and aviation in general as a business. So we continued to serve and to operate the same infrastructure while there is a huge demand and it's an opportunity to make money and also to connect the continent. Number three, after the independence, some governments decided to make airports, airline, and aviation in general a profit business. But they did not want to leave that business to the private sector. So my second then will be to have the privatization. Privatization means giving the operations, services, airport services to the public, to the private sector. Yes, and the last will be the liberalization of our airspace. The African airspace is divided into 55 small portions, and all these portions, they are used by just one. It's one airline which is crossing from south to north to west. That's where they drop the money, and the air ticket, it triples the cost. I would say that. If those three changes, the aviation in Africa will go smoothly. Thank you.
Thank you. It's been a persistent kind of challenge or issue that we've been hearing throughout today. Charles, the Rwandan government, as we've heard, is very kind of proactive and supportive, but what sort of financial model would you like to see for airports, or do you think is viable for airports within Africa?
Okay, generally in Africa, yes. Yesterday we were discussing about financing our sector, the aviation sector in general, not aviation as airport only, but airline and the entire sector, because it's a cycle. We were discussing about our development partners, the World Bank, the FME, the African Development Bank, and the Arab Development Bank somewhere. All of them, they have money, but they have limited resources to share with the African requests. So the government, each government goes with like 20 files in these banks and other financial institutions. The healthcare, we're talking about agriculture. Now, today what is trending is the environment protection. So you can imagine then bringing 8 files of one government, and there were 55 governments. You're adding airport development, airport maintenance, or airport upgrade. That would never be a priority for those development partners. So then, my wish for this is to have at least one financing entity which is collecting the funds from the different partners, but putting it together and naming it as aviation development in Africa. So each government goes and grab the money from that fund at least, and then we know that Kigali will need this amount to develop the domestic or international. The other way, if not, my government will never prioritize airport, based on the agricultural demand in our context. The other side would look the same. So the private sector, our finance institutions in the continent, they need to get together to be our financing, the principal financing partners, not for looking for the 3 or 4 international ones. For example, if we have the Equity Bank, Eco Bank, whatever, we have that group of investors with their money. I see their annual reports that they generate revenues and they call them dividend, whatever, and put that money aside to facilitate the African aviation. For why? One reason is that the aviation in Africa will be the only locomotive, the drive of the economy of the continent. So that each government, if we give them at least that chance to go and look for the fund, separate fund, they will go, but also we continue to request for the agriculture, education, health, and others. That's my thinking. Otherwise, we will be going and requesting the priority number 1 will not be this one. Aviation will come on the last because we call it the luxury. And in luxury, let's say, is it a domain or just a business? Yeah. Thank you.
And Charles, one of the things you mentioned just earlier was airports are businesses, and within that business there's multiple job roles. It's not just pilots or ground handlers. There's lots of other roles within the airport sector. So we've had plenty of young people here today. What are you doing to attract that younger market and make sure that you're getting in early so they understand what those opportunities are within the airport?
Thank you very much. The government of Rwanda decided, first of all, to make some of the I can call it assessment on the needed resources as well as the skills in the aviation industry. We are positioning ourselves to be at least a key player in this region as an aviation hub. So what we did, and currently what we are doing, we saw that there is an assessment. In the morning we saw here on the screen the number of jobs that are required to double our passengers in 2040. That number requires the state and all the stakeholders to be part of it and prepare ahead. So that's why we have established a center, a civil aviation training center, based here in Kigali, in Rwanda Civil Aviation Authority, training the young people to come into this industry. But also for the future transformation, Rwanda has established a center of excellence on regional and the continent, which is funded by the African Development Bank. And it will be managed by our holding company, ATL, through Akagira Aviation. That's the domestic and training center here in Rwanda. And we want to make it open to the African continent. We're not training the Rwandan people alone, but we want also to see how many training centers are needed on the continent and how can we develop those skills, at least not going far. Because today, if I want some developed or skilled people to be hired at Rwanda Airport Company, I need to go to steal. I call it steal the labor from Kenya, from Uganda, or from anywhere. But I know that we're not a well-paying entity. That's why the Middle East will come and take our resources, the developed resources. Therefore, we need to secure enough workforce which is developed, but also customized into the operational, the African context. So for me, what I see today is that we know the number we need in Rwanda, we know the number we need, at least in the region and also on the continent, in order to go further to this career of aviation, and we make it grow. Thank you.
And I want to kind of turn the conversation now towards technology and innovation within the airport sector. So, we're seeing digital tools being rolled out across the world, the wider adoption of biometrics, automation, AI. So, Charles, what holds the greatest potential for you in terms of emerging or advanced technologies for efficiency within airport operations?
Thank you, Chloe. I think in Africa, talking about the advanced technology and not thinking about the traditional services we used to deliver will challenge so many, because we have the gap in generation. So that's why our resources are duplicated. So all airports needs to be digital. The airport services need to be digitalized, but also we need to have people around just to serve as the man-hands responsibility, because we will have our elders want to visit a cousin, to visit a son or a daughter outside, and the person doesn't know how to use the self-check-in. It's an example. That's why we will have always the check-in counters manned by people and also moving around. And there is a service there on the maintenance services, the salary around the people who are manning it, but also you need to invest also with those new technology and services in order to facilitate those used to be. Secondly, is about the data sharing or integration. All those that we do at the airport need to be communicatable maybe. The one service communicates to another, and then you generate a report in order to have the collective data at least. So we are not behind in technology because we follow the world. If we don't, we'll be left behind. But it's a cost. It's a cost. That's why I'm saying that in Africa we do duplicate our efforts, but it's needed. It's necessary. But I hope with the vision of the African Union, with the vision of the leadership of the African presidents and the countries, we'll go smoothly towards the West, where the West and the Middle East they are, because they were all on the same level, the same range like us. So once concentrated on service delivery, customer satisfaction, and also to have a smooth operation will facilitate and give a chance to the operators at least to breathe. Because I want to tell you two things. Airport, it's the best business in the world. All you are encouraged to invest at least in airport. Airport has different services, but I see that the government don't want to leave that business. But there's the connects services around. It makes money, but making money, but also it's expensive. The expensive, but generating money, this can at least facilitate. And lastly, with this number of 20,000 pilots, 15,000 pilots and 20,000 engineers, all of them need other support people in this industry. Means that we need to invest more and more in human capital on the continent, but also thinking about the idea of the young girl there who was talking about the technology and advanced services, and not only concentrating on the classic services at the airport. Nothing.
Okay, and I'm just conscious of time, and I want to be able to get to the audience to ask a couple of questions. But before I do, I have a quick question for each of you. And earlier on, we heard Adefunke asking about SAATM and wanting to know what ideas need to be implemented to make SAATM actually happen. So, if I can come to each of you, Charles, from your perspective, what role do airports have in implementing SAATM?
The airport is the gate to any country, and the SAATM as well is the engine to drive our connectivity and also the increase of our passengers that we need. So for us, we don't have any challenge to take responsibility to advocate, but also to encourage the implementation of SAATM program. It's a project, it's a program, but also it's a vision for Africa. If we need a single air, let's say, aviation market as an open, on the side of Rwanda, we have already started. As he highlighted today, our president, His Excellency Kagame, in the morning, he said that Rwanda decided to open the gate to all African brothers and sisters. There is no requirement of visa. You do not even need to get the visa upon arrival. No, it's an open gate for Africans. This was in mind of thinking that Africa as a brotherhood, from the north to south, we need to collaborate, but also we need to do business together. So once a state decides so, nothing else is required except only to go through this possibility. With SAATM at Rwanda Airport Company, we encourage the airlines to come at Kigali International Airport. We even provide some incentives for the service providers, the airport, airline, and the aviation general service providers to come and be positioned at Kigali as just that way of supporting the African agenda. The SAATM on my side, I'm looking it, and with the possibility of getting there. The issue is everybody on board? Do all understand the importance of having SAATM implemented? The answer is yes and no. Yes and no, because there is what we call sovereignty, the sovereignty of all the nations. Me, I'm seeing my sky, my airspace, in terms of protection. But the SAATM is not coming to just make some difficulties in that sovereignty possession, but also to let the flight go straight. I know how these African airlines suffer. If you want to come from South Africa, you go to Cairo in Egypt. How do you do? It's not a straight way. No. You need to go a zigzag, crossing one country. You don't want to pass this because maybe there is a money to drop. You know, we are over there, but we drop the coins, the dollars, down there. If we had one basket, for example, of collecting those revenues from the air navigation services, the air ticket on the continent would be less than 1,000, because we pay and we pay. Again, for this connectivity issue, we come from one country to another on the continent, but crossing the continent, you go out of the continent, either in Asia or in Europe, to go back in Africa. I go to Dakar today, or I go to Morocco, but I need to go to Turkey or Dubai or elsewhere. Why? Because it's not an open space. Let's have the space which is open, and that agenda of African Union be respected and implemented. Thank you.